All right. Well, thank you, Kevin. My name is Glenn, and I'm an alcoholic. And I'm going to tell you my story, which is basically a story of transformation of how I was a taker. I was selfish, self-centered, self-seeking, self-serving, everything it says on 62. That was all about me, how I changed into a giver through this selfless program. It's not a selfish program, a selfless program. And my drinking career, if you can call it a career, my drinking career started, I think, when I was around 16. My mom had contracted cancer, and she was diagnosed with cancer for a year. And my dad knew, but nobody else knew. The doctors told him, don't tell anybody, don't tell the kids, don't even tell his wife, my mom. And near November, she started really going downhill. And my birthday was in January, and my dad said, let's celebrate Christmas in November, because I'm not sure if mom's going to be around. And we didn't know what was going on. I was just before I turned 16. In fact, January 25th is my birthday. And my mom died just before that. And I was upset because I'm going to miss out on my 16th birthday. I mean, here it is, my mom died, right? But the impact didn't get me. But I was really pissed off at my dad when I found out that he knew. And I wanted to get out of that house as fast as possible. No, he got his mom, my grandmother, to watch us kids. I was 16. My sister was 12, and my other sister was 8. So it was a fistful for my dad to take care of. So my grandmother came in and she kind of watched us kids. We came home from school, and I graduated when I was 17. And as soon as I graduated, in the middle of the night, I had a car then. And in the middle of the night, I took all my 45 RPM records. You know, those are the small records with the big hole in the middle. I took all my records and put them in the backseat of my car, my worldly possessions, and I moved out, stealthily. And I moved into a boarding house. I didn't tell him I was moving, and I didn't want anything to do with him. It took a few weeks, but he finally found my car. It was kind of distinctive. Definitely a drunk mobile. But he left a business card on my windshield and it said, call home, But we never really got together since then. I'll talk about that later. But the first 5 years in my recovery, I blamed that whole scene, my mom dying, and just before I was 16. And that's why I drank. And it wasn't until I really started getting into the steps, really started doing the work, that I realized, no, I was really the cause of that whole thing. It was not my mom. My mom just passed because, well, she contracted cancer. But I'm the one that caused the drinking. So like I said, I moved out. I fell in love with this donut shop girl. And she said, I'm living in a boarding house in a neighboring town, and a room just became available. Why don't you come over there? So I moved into this other room in a nearby town. And we started to, play footsies a little bit more. And next thing you know, we're staying in the same room for economic reasons, of course. And next thing you know, we got married. And that's going to be wife number one. If anybody's going to keep track, there are going to be 3. So wife number one and I stayed married for about 7 years. I went to college, became an electronic engineer. And my first wife's name was Judy. And then after I broke up with her, I started hanging out with Julie. My present wife's name, well, I had Ginger, was wife number 2, and my present wife's name is Jane. My daughter's name is Jessie. So I have a problem, I think, but that's beside the point. Okay, so I moved out of wife number 1, and I started to really party. I was living across the street from a college, and it really gave me the opportunity to party hardy. And that's the way I like to do it. I just like to go all out. I fell in love with a gal at work. I'm working for submarine trainers now in the military, and I got deferred because of that. So I didn't have to go to Vietnam. I was number 5 on the list with the draft at the time. But I fell in love with this gal, and Ginger, wife number 2. And we had 2 kids, Jesse and Brian. And we stayed together for, I guess, about 7 years as well. But I was still partying. I still like to really have a good party. And as the kids are getting brought up, I guess there were about maybe 4 and 2 or 5 and 3, something like that. And it was interfering with my partying, interfering with the way I like to drink. And so I moved out, and I left the kids. I left my wife. I left the house that we bought, and I fixed up. And I moved to this apartment on the other side of Long Island. I used to live on Long Island. And I moved into this apartment, which was wall-to-wall carpeting, no furniture. And I remember sitting with my back against the wall, with my knees up to my chest, holding onto my knees, and looking at the vast expanse. It was a big living room, looking at the vast expanse and feeling empty inside. Father Martin, I found out later on, he calls that the God hole. And I think that's what I had. I had this God hole. And I wanted to fill this God hole with something. So I went out on Monday nights to one pub. Tuesday night was a different crowd. That was Dart night with another pub. Wednesday night was a different crowd. And then Thursday night was the start of the weekend for me. And I was partying with a different crowd, the weekend people. I was always out of the house. I never liked to live alone. I never liked to cook for myself. I never liked to care for myself. And I finally fell in love. Well, I changed jobs into this other consultant job where I was doing consulting to the military on weapon systems, F-18s and F-16s, and things like that. And I fell in love with the girl who was office manager there. And 1 led to 2, 2 led to 3. Jane, wife number 3, became my wife. And I was still partying, but Jane kind of calmed me down some, but I was resistant. You know, I still wanted to do what I wanted to do, when I wanted to do it. Get out of my way, here I come, you know. I got involved with Better Living Through Chemistry as well at the time. And I know this is an AA meeting, but it did accelerate my drinking. That's all I'm going to say about that. It brought me to a place where I was drinking a lot more and able to drink more. And at her request one night, she said, well, dump that stuff down the drain. I said, okay, fine. And I went without it for about 6 months. Until one day, I had a fight with my boss. I was program manager for this job, and our customer was the Air Force. And I went to Kelly Air Force Base in Texas to ask my point of contact there for more money, more money for our contracts. He wanted to renew our contract. And basically my contact said, there's no more money coming down. That's it. It's cut off at the top and there's no more money. And I go back to my boss and I say, hey, that's it. It's drying up. There's no more money. He says, go back there and ask him again. And I was like, really? I mean, I developed a good rapport with this guy and he wants me to go ask him again. I mean, I couldn't do it. So that was the end, the start of the end of my working for this company. And it was soon after that that I got laid off. My whole division got laid off. And I go to this time I'm sober now. Well, because I got pissed off at my boss that night, I went out and I got really loaded. I started at the Barefoot Peddler, which is a bar on the way home. My car would veer left, or as soon as I come up to the parking lot of the Barefoot Peddler, I had front end problems, and it would just turn right into that parking lot. I had no control. And I would start to do shots in a beer. That meant that I'm going to go into oblivion. That's where I like to drink. I like to drink to oblivion. I think I'm successful when I get into oblivion. So I'm really getting toasted, and my friend comes up from work, and he buys around, I buy around, bartender buys around, you got to stay for another one now. And I said, listen, I have to go into Queens. I lived on Long Island and Glen Cove. Glen Cove. Anyway, had to go into Queens to get some wine labels. So you didn't know it until this point, but I used to make wine. What happened was, about 3 or 4 years prior to this, my wife and I and her parents went to Pennsylvania to pick some blueberries. And we picked really big blueberries. And you had this bucket tied around your neck, and you're picking them and eating them and picking them and eating them and just having a great old time. We put them all together, and we had about 50 pounds of blueberries. We bought a little book on what to do with the blueberries. We made blueberry pie, blueberry muffins, blueberry scones. In the back of the book, it said how to make blueberry wine. So we made a little blueberry wine, and you put a balloon on the top, and it blows up as it ferments, and then you burp the balloon, and then it blows up again until it stops, and then you know that it's finished fermenting. Well, we tasted it, and it tasted great. I mean, here it is, God's gift to mankind, and we're making this wonderful nectar. The next year, we go pick blueberries again because we really like doing it. It was a lot of fun. We didn't make any scones. We didn't make any pies. We didn't make any muffins. We just made the blueberry wine. And we started making more and more and more wine. We started switching to grapes. I lived in an Italian neighborhood, and they brought me down to see this guy who imports the grapes from California. And if a little bit is the right amount and more is better, then too much has got to be perfect, right? I mean, you guys understand that. So we started getting more and more and more grapes. Now, it takes 2 42-pound boxes of grapes to make a 5-gallon carboy, which is a glass water jug, you know, like the water cooler jug, the glug-glug thing. So it takes about 84 pounds of grapes to make 5 gallons. And if a little bit is the right amount and more is better, too much has got to be perfect. This last year of my winemaking, which is 1987, I had 3/4 tons of grapes delivered to my home. That's enough for 950 bottles of wine. I mean, it's for my own consumption. If there's anybody here from the IRS, I have nothing to do with selling it. I did not sell it. Anyway, we made a lot of different kinds of wine. We made champagne. That's the kind where you put the cork in, you wire the hood, you put a wire hood on top and snag it down. In the middle of the night, we hear these things. Oh, we lost another one, and the cork would hit the ceiling. The wine came out really good. So now I'm making my own label, getting my own labels printed with our name on it. Karashkat, that's my last name. Karashkat Winery. We never had a winery, but Karashkat Winery, that's what we called it. And we're going into Queens to pick up labels. This is where we stopped at the Barefoot Peddler. So my friend says, listen, I'm going to go get a little something from my friend over here. I said, okay, I'll pick up a 6-pack of St. Pauli Girl. Now, St. Pauli Girl is the beers I like. You know, you drink with your pinky out. That's the fancy beers. I mean, I could also drink the tap beers, you know, Schlitz or Budweiser or any of those kind of beers. I mean, with the sawdust on the floor and the puke in the corners, that's okay. I like those kind of bars too. But I bought the 6-pack of St. Pauli Girl. And we're drinking those. We did what he got from this other guy, and I'm toasted. I'm in a total blackout, and I'm driving home. And we stop at this other bar, and I have a Johnny Walker Red and soda. You didn't know it, but that was my drink of choice, Johnny Walker Red. And I had a couple of those. And now I'm getting home, and it's about maybe 11 o'clock. It's not that late. But my wife is sleeping already, and my dinner is on the dining room table, piece of cellophane on top, you know, nice and cold like it normally was. And remember, this whole night started because I was pissed off at my boss. So I get up there, and this is how it was told to me, because I'm in a blackout and I don't remember it. I jumped on top of her and put my knees on her shoulders, and with my clenched fist, I started beating her face. And I can't imagine ever doing something like that in my life. I've never done it before or after. I just can't imagine doing that. I woke up the next morning in the spare bedroom. I never sleep in the spare bedroom. I woke up at 9 o'clock. I'm never late for work at 8 o'clock in the morning. I called my wife. She wasn't home. I called my wife. I said, "What's going on?" She says, "You don't remember?" I said, "No." She said, "You'll see when you get home." I said, "Okay, fine." So when I get home, she's all black and blue and puffy and yellow. I said, "What happened to you?" She said, "You really don't remember?" "No, I don't remember." She said, "You were beating me." And I took out a restraining order. Now, I've had a couple of DUIs up to this point. I've been in front of a judge. I spent long weekends in jails. If you're ever going to get arrested, by the way, don't get arrested on a Thursday or a Friday night going into a long weekend. You're going to be there until Tuesday. But anyway, she said, "You got to appear in front of this judge on this restraining order." So I'm standing in front of the judge, and he says, "Okay, you're going to get 6 months in jail if you violate this restraining order." And my wife had added 3 other stipulations. One was I couldn't come home drunk. My keen intellectual mind is saying, well, I'll just have 2 beers. I don't know if you've ever tried the 2-beer trick. That doesn't work, but I thought it might, you know. Second stipulation was I couldn't drink in the house. Okay, fine. So I'll drink in the backyard. No big deal. The third stipulation was I had to get counseling at the local alcohol counseling center. I knew that was the killer. The jig was up because I knew that they knew. You know. So that was September 27th, 1987, my day of infamy. So I started going to this counseling, and she said, I have to go to AA. Thank God. But she said, I have to go to AA. And she told me where it was, and I told her I couldn't find it. And she said, well, okay, next week when you come in, I'll draw you a little map. She drew me a map. I came in the following week. I said, I still couldn't find it. And then I came in the next week. I said, they locked the doors. She says, BS. If you don't go, you're going to be in violation. That got my attention. Okay. I said, okay, I'll go to this stupid ANA meeting, you know, and I go downstairs, and it's like a church basement, low ceilings, maybe 10-foot ceilings, and smoke from about 18 inches off the floor up to the ceiling. You have to go like this to get through the room. And I look around the room and I see nothing but 80-year-olds, it seems. That's just a lot like what you guys look like, you know, what I look like as well. But there's nothing but a bunch of older people in there. Oh, no, you know, what have I come to? This looks like God's waiting room, for crying out loud. This is horrible. What am I going to do? But I'll tell you what happened. I saw the smiling faces and the dancing eyes, and I said, you know, I think I really want what they have. And I started to go to these meetings. Now, I started to go to these meetings, and on October 9th, my friend comes over, guy who taught me how to make wine, and he says, hey, Glenn, you have to try this latest batch. This is Giuseppe. You have to try this latest batch I made. That's my best Italian accent. So there's a picture of my last drink. I tasted this half a glass of wine. It's a full glass of wine, but when you fill it up only half away, it's only a half glass. Anyway, I drank that glass of wine, and it wasn't until maybe 8 years later that I realized my wife took that picture. Anyway, so that was my last drink. So that's why I reset to 10:10. 10:10 is my sober date. And when I reset, I stopped counting days. I started doing this thing one day at a time. And when I started doing it one day at a time, and I noticed there's other people in the meeting, that one guy was making coffee. I tried to help him. He wouldn't let me get close to the coffee urn. That was his job. He loved doing it, and he guarded it. He did that damn thing for about 3 or 4 years too. Wouldn't let it go. Another guy mopped the floor. He picked up all the chairs, put them on the side, swept the floor, and then he mopped it. You couldn't take that mop from him if you wanted to. And I couldn't understand it, but it's the act of giving yourself that I really admired. You know, for the group. Do it for the group. That was the thing that you guys instilled in me. You gave me a big book, and you told me to read this book, page 58. That's everything's there on 58. I don't do that now, but that's what they told me then. So I started copying tapes. We had cassettes. That's the things where you have to take the little pencil or wind the tape up if it gets fouled. Anyway, I was copying my friend's tapes, and I got 100 of these tapes. And these were all really good ones. Clancy and Bob Earl, Johnny Harris, all the classics. And I go to this local store, recovery shop, and I said, look, there's a listing of 100 tapes I have. I'll sell them to you for $3. You can sell them for $5 or $6, whatever you like. And she says, okay. And she starts checking them off. And my eyes are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And she said, she checked off 30 of them. She says, I'll take 3 of each. Wow, this is great. Now, I've been copying these tapes on a 1-to-1 cassette, where it takes 90 minutes to copy a 90-minute tape. So I said to my wife, she's waiting for me in the car, I said, let me borrow your American Express. You know, my credit cards are gone by this time. She goes, what do you want it for? You can't have my card. I said, look, I'm going to buy this machine. It's a high-speed duplicator. And as soon as I get the check from this company, from this store, I'll pay you back. She says, okay, but that's it. That's the way it has to be. I said, okay, I promise. So I bought this high-speed duplicator, and I was able to make 3 cassettes in 2 minutes, or 3 minutes, actually. It records them in 2 and rewinds in 1. So it makes 3 tapes in 3 minutes, and I'm in business. So that was the start of Glen K Audio. So I started to go to conventions, and I started to have people working for me. You know, people come out, they come into the rooms, and they're brand new. They don't have a job. They don't know what they're going to do. Hey, come work for me. And I'd put them to work and put labels on. Sometimes they'd put them on upside down or something, you know, where you have to fix it. These guys are drunks. The best they can do. But I felt good. I'm paying them something. They feel good that they're earning something. And then they'd go off someplace and they'd get a real job. And I'd get another crew. But we started going out to conventions. And I went to the West New York State Convention, I think it was something like that. And I recorded this thing called 11-step panel. I'll tell you about that in a little while. But, well, I'll tell you about it now. This guy had a way that he did his 11th step by reading certain paragraphs out of the big book. I loved it. When I got home, I said, I have to rewind that cassette and stop it periodically so I can write down these page numbers. And I put it in my book and I highlighted it and I started doing it, and it really helped me quite a bit. Again, if a little bit is the right amount and more is better, too much has got to be perfect. I mean, I started ordering more and more tapes. I was ordering from Dyco. They helped me get started. It was really nice. And I was buying blank tapes from them. And one day I bought 100 cassettes. And then a couple of months later, I ended up buying a case, which is 500 cassettes. Then I started buying these high-speed machines, and I was able to make, what was it? I think it was 11 and 9, 20. I could make 20 cassettes every 3 minutes. So I was really pounding them out, you know. And then CDs came out, and we started doing everything on CD. And I'm going to more and more conventions, and now we're going all over the country. My wife is my salesperson, and I was the guy in the back doing the recording and the duplicating. And we had a pretty good time with it all over the country. There came a time when I didn't know if I was going to be able to pay the mortgage. My mortgage was like $3,300 a month. I mean, it was huge. That's a lot of cassettes to sell. And my wife says, you know, you stupid old goat. We've been in business for 10 years, times 12 months. That's 120 months. And we haven't missed a payment yet. So here it is. She's helping me understand that God is in control, not Glenn, not the great I am. The selfish, self-centered, self-seeking, self-serving guy kind of is getting diminished by this program. You guys are doing it. And you're showing me that by helping others, I get better. The line in the big book, like the Gaunt gold digger who's finally struck the mother lode and he has to give it away in order to keep it. It's a hard concept to understand. But I started giving away more and more and more. And things started going really well for me. We did a job. So now I'm going to show you how God entered into my life. And I didn't even see it coming. And it was through you folks. I'm going to AA a lot, and I'm getting really grateful for my old home group. And I go to this old guy, throw your hat, Fred. He used to take his baseball cap and throw it across the room to make a point. And he said, I said to him, listen, I want to buy a case of big books, not the soft covered book. I want to buy the hardcover books. I want to buy a case and give it to the group. I felt really good about this. And he said, well, that's nice, but instead of doing that, why don't you become the book chairperson? I said, well, what's that? That's where you get money from the treasury. You buy some books, you put it on the table. And when somebody wants to buy a book, you give them the book and you take the money, you put it in the basket and replenish your stock. And I said, oh, I can do that. We got to watch out for these old timers, okay? That old timer got that job 3 weeks prior. And he goes, here, kid, why don't you become the book chairperson? But I'm forever grateful for Fred for showing me that. We go out on one of these open speaker things. That's where 3 people go out. One is like the MC and the other 2 do the speaking. And he said, okay, you be the MC. And I said, yeah, okay, fine. And 2 other guys were going to, Fred and this other guy was going to be the speakers. So we're driving there and he says, you know, I have a sore throat. I don't think I can do it. Why don't you be the speaker tonight? So I got my first time speaking. I'm in front of 200 people on a stage with a microphone. It was fun. But that's Fred. That's the way Fred did it. You know, it just leads you by the hand. Speaking of lead you by the hand, I got laid off at that job. this consulting job I had. I was making way too much money. And like I said, that whole division got laid off. I didn't know what I was going to do. I go to my noon meeting and I say, I don't know what's going to happen, but I know I'm in good hands. I know, like Allstate, it's going to be okay. I'm in good hands. So 3 weeks of looking for a job all over. I couldn't find a job anyplace. There were 50,000 electronic engineers on Long Island that were laid off. And I'm in competition with PhDs, and I couldn't compete. So that's when I decided to do this taping thing full time. And I'm forever grateful. See, God was in my life intervening. I never would have quit that job. I was making way too much money for too little work. I could get lost in the middle of the day, and my secretary would say, he's in one of these 3 buildings, and they could never find me. It was a great job. But I really didn't feel accomplished, you know? I didn't feel like I was doing anything. I'm working on weapon systems, I mean, which I didn't care for anyway. So full-time taper now. And we're doing a job in Seattle. We're doing another job 3 weeks later in Houston. And I said to my wife, instead of shipping everything out and flying us out and back, and then doing the same thing in Houston and back, why don't we just take a road trip? We'll take a month off. We'll stop at Yellowstone, see my sisters in Denver, have a good time. So we're driving out there, and we're on Interstate 80 beneath Wisconsin. My friend, good friend of mine, lives in Wisconsin. She goes to a lot of big book studies in Florida. Beth knows the Joe and Charlie Big Book Studies, Fort Lauderdale area, Boca Raton. And Luann has been down there for almost as long as I've been going down there. I recorded Joe and Charlie over 50 times, by the way. Love those guys. So I call up Luann and I say, hey, we're underneath Wisconsin, just passing by. I wanted to say hi. She said, well, I'm not in Wisconsin. I'm in our other home, which is in Montana. I said, oh, I didn't know you had another home. She said, yeah, it's right outside the west gate of Yellowstone. I said, that's where we're going. We're going to Yellowstone. Now, I tell my guys that I work with, if they're struggling with step 2, you know, who is this God? What is God? All that stuff. Anytime you have a coincidence, something that's weird, something you don't understand, you write it down in your little book and call it the Odd God book. Is it odd or is it God? You don't have to decide, just write it down. And when the evidence becomes overwhelming, you realize that God is in your life. So my wife starts to say, hey, you better write this down in your Odd God book. I mean, I'm telling my guys to do it. I better start doing it now. So sure enough, we end up staying at her house 2 or 3 days. We had a wonderful time. She has this huge log cabin right on the gate, the west gate of Yellowstone. And it's just perfect. And then we go on to do the job in Seattle. So my sister's in Denver, coming back to Houston, did the job down there. And then we decide to go into Nolens. My friend Gumbo is here. He'll get excited when I just mentioned Nolens. See, like I know what I'm saying. But New Orleans. Anyway, we stopped there, and it was on Labor Day weekend. We had a great room over right on Bourbon Street, and we go to walk the street. Now, Jane, my wife, has never been there, and she's just like a little kid in a candy store. All the music and the gaiety of the crowd. I mean, it's just a lot of fun. And she says, let's stop at this voodoo guy and get our fortunes told. Now, she went to 2 other psychics before our trip, and both psychics said, oh, you're going to find your new home. So we thought we were going to find it in Denver because I was going to be near my sisters, I thought. But we couldn't find anything there. But the voodoo guy says, oh, I see you found your new home. I said, no, Goes, well, you'll find your new home. I went, we already gave up on that. We're coming home now. This is the last leg going back to Long Island. So I said, no, you're going to find it. And your 3 kids are going to love it. I said, what do you mean 3 kids? I have 2 kids. No, you have 3 kids. Whatever. So now we're coming up Interstate 81, which cuts through Tennessee. And I'm starting to smell rubber burning, and open up the hood. I don't see anything, but I definitely can smell it. And I'm right at the exit sign. Is it odd or is it God? I don't know. But I pull off and I go into the town for this exit, town of Greeneville. This is where I'm living now. We fell in love with the town. We fell in love with the people. The guy who fixes my car says, well, you're going to have to stay overnight. It's a long process. I said, okay, just bring us back to the hotel. We look in a real estate book and I see a 5-bedroom home on 5 acres of property, wraparound porch, and the taxes are $500. I'm paying $15,000 a year on Long Island. I said, we're moving. It's a no-brainer. That's it. We're moving. I thought I was going to operate my business here. So is it odd or is it God? I don't know. Write it down. My wife tells me, write it down. So now we're going back and forth from Long Island to Tennessee, looking for property, looking for homes. We see this one piece of property. It's just gorgeous. My wife loved it. And I said, we're not buying it. It's the first piece we saw. We're not buying it. That's it. We keep looking. 2 more months of a lot of trips. And she said, let's take a look at this one. I said, wow, this is a great. She goes, yeah, I know. This is the first one we saw. I told you this is the good one. This is where we are now on this property. We love it. We have the Appalachian Mountains behind us. We have maybe 500 head of cattle in our backyard, not our cattle, but our neighbors. The town that we actually live in is called Chuckey, 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 Tennessee. I think its population 6,000. 5,000 have got to be cattle because I don't see anybody here. There's nobody here. We have a two-way stop, and that's downtown. I mean, there's a antique store that's open on Thursday, and there's a wrestling school, WWF kind of wrestling school on the other corner. That's it. I fell in love with the area. I fell in love with the people. They say, can I take the bags out to the car for you, sir? Can I help you with this, sir? I had contractors working on my home. I come from New York. Yeah, let me give you a little $20 here. Do a good job. No, we can't take any extra money. This is what we do. This is our job. We do our job well. There's no tipping. You're not supposed to tip. I'm not used to this. I'm not, from a guy from Long Island, it's not used to this nice way of living. I fell in love with this one group, the Lunch Bunch group, which Kevin mentioned. It's a group face-to-face group that I go to every day. The Sober Start is my Zoom meeting that I go to every day at 6:30 in the morning. So I go to 2 meetings a day, and it seems to keep me in line. If I go on vacation and I start to act up, because my schedule is a little bit off or not in sync, my wife will go, hey, you need to go to a meeting. Sandy Beach tells a little story. He says, as you're going down the road of life, I have to give him credit 3 times and then I can own it. So this is the last time for Sandy Beach, right? So as you go down the road of life, your tires may hit a bump in the road. Says it's a small bump. It's not a big deal. A little jolt. Okay, not a big deal. But if it's a deep hole, you could really hurt your tire, blow the rim. You could really cause some damage. If it's super big, you could throw out the front end. You could crash into a tree. He said, now, your sponsor is your tire pressure gauge. Yeah, I like that. So my wife was like, you need a meeting. She's my sponsor when I'm away. And it's things like that where I start to get in tune with God. I told you about this thing in Western New York, guy with this 11-step panel. I do this thing called the spiritual roadmap. And I start teaching the guys that I work with the spiritual roadmap, and it becomes pretty popular. They start to talk about it, and other people talk about it. Next thing you know, I go to a foreign meeting. I was in Virginia one time. I was at a meeting, and somebody said, "Oh, the spiritual roadmap." Now, I've never been to Virginia. I don't know how the guy knows about the spiritual roadmap. I don't care. It goes like this. It's wonderful. I took all my CDs, and well, most of them, and I put them on a YouTube channel, Glenn K. AA Speakers. All my stuff is up there. They're for free. Download them, listen to them whenever you want. The spiritual roadmap is also on there. And I give people links to that. As just something that I do. I do it online. I did it to a couple of groups in England in the last couple of months, and they love it. It's just, it starts out with on awakening, let us think about the 24 hours ahead, that kind of thing. Those paragraphs are probably your sponsor made you read whenever, but it gives you an overview of what the program is about. Like I said, I go to a meeting every day. I'm active in service. I'm forever grateful for Fred for showing me how to become a book chairperson. I later became treasurer of that group. And then I became GSR and then DCM. And I stopped at that in the that part of service. But I went into the jail, Nassau County Jail, the place that took me for a couple of days. And I did a jail meeting in there for 8 years. 1 year I did the women's section, and I brought him through the big book, line by line. And it was a little odd at first. When I walked in, everybody was a little, guy going into the women's section. But we got down to business, and they realized that I'm there for AA, period. That's it. If you want this stuff, I'll be happy to help you, but that's it. There's no funny business going on. And then we had a real good meeting. And that was for about a year. When I moved to Tennessee, I signed up to speak at the local workhouse. We have the court system here where they have to have paper signs. The judge says you have to have a paper signed and go to AA meetings or NA meetings. And so we got these people that are in the workhouse, and they get 1 day off their time for every day they work outside. So they're picking up papers along the roadway or whatever, raking yards, whatever they do for the community. So I go in there once a month on the third Thursday of every month. I also signed up in my neighboring county to go into the Washington County Jail. That's every Monday night. I just got approved to go there recently. So I stay busy, I stay involved. I sponsor a few guys. Somebody asked me how many guys do I sponsor? About half of them, The other ones, they just say that I'm their sponsor, but whatever, it's fine. So I find that the more I help others, the more I do God's work, the more God does my work. And I don't have to worry. Thank you, Kevin. On Wednesday, by the way, the lunch bunch, we have a speaker meeting. So I have all these contacts from my taping business, and we have great speaker meetings, 12 noon Eastern time. But I love being in service. I'm in treasurer for my Sober Start meeting. We get maybe 120 people every morning, 6:30 in the morning. There are people from Texas. There are people from California. Gary's in Central Time Zone. He gets up 5:30 for the meeting. It's amazing. And that meeting, there's something special about it. I don't know what it is, but there's a certain glue that keeps people together. You see people coming in with open arms. They're welcomed. every day. We welcome newcomers every day. And we get maybe, I don't know, maybe up to 10 newcomers a day. It's amazing. People counting days up to 1 year. I love it. I love this program. I love what you guys gave me because I've turned from a taker to a giver. What a giant change. And you know, I wanted what you had, but I wanted to do the 12 steps in 12 days and return the book. I mean, I just wanted to get through this thing as fast as possible. I didn't realize, oh, you mean study the big book. Oh, you mean over and over and over. I didn't get that. I just thought you read it like a novel and put the book down. But now I help guys, line by line, word by word. We go through the big book. One of the things that I ask the guys that I sponsor is they have to memorize the steps. And they get a little pissed off at that. I tell them about the game of telephone. You know, if you have 10 guys lined up and I tell one person a story, by the time it gets to the 10th person, it's a totally different story. So I don't want this program to be watered down. What's the program? The program is this program. The program in this book. That's it. That's the program. Erwin's got the deal. That's the program. This program. I don't want it to be even my program. I want it to be the program. So I insist they memorize the step. So it's not their interpretation of the step as they pass it down. I love the feeling that I know when I'm connected with somebody and I get the God feeling. I don't know how else to describe it. Where I see the light bulb go on in their eyes and all of a sudden they go, oh, I get this. Thank you. And they're genuine about it. You know, some tough guys, tattoos and whatever, you know, just biker dudes. I used to be a biker dude, but I mean, you know, tough guys. And all of a sudden, oh, I get it. I have to help somebody. I tell them, yeah. When you go to the supermarket, you got to take the buggy. They call them buggies down here. You have to take the carriage, the buggy, and bring it into the supermarket. Take the one that's loose out there in the parking lot. You can put it in the corral, but that's half good. I tell them that you have the point system, okay? If you do something nice for somebody, you get 1 point. If you do something nice for somebody and you don't tell them that you did it, you get 2 points. Tough one. If you do something nice for somebody and you don't tell anybody, you get 3 points. They're tough. Like in basketball, from outside the key to get those 3-pointers, it's not easy shot. And then I tell them, write it on your calendar. Add them up at the end of the week. Whatever number you come up with, you have to get more the next week. That's the deal. Helping others. When we help others, it seems that everything I need comes to me. Not everything I want. Everything I need comes to me. I don't have to even ask for it. It just happens. I'm blessed. I am totally, totally blessed. You folks have taught me to live in a totally different way. I love doing inventories. Inventories is really where you see the magic happen. And in meetings, when we talk about the 4th step, we're going to do that a lot next month, because it's the 4th month, and we always read the reflections every day at our face-to-face meeting. And it's all about the 4th step. And I tell them the 4th step is like looking at a 20-foot wall. How am I ever going to climb that wall? You know, like in boot camp, you see the army guys running around, and how are you going to get over this 20-foot wall? With it hand in hand together, they can get over this wall. So hand in hand together, we can do this. And then when you're on the other side, step 5, maybe even step 6, looking back at step 4 and 5, it looks like a curb, like it was 4 inches high. Why didn't I do this years ago? That's how I felt. months ago for me. I did it in the first about year and a half. Why didn't I do this so many months ago? Because the relief I got, my planned program of recovery, where I'm going to go, what the things I need to work on, the things I need to surrender in 6 and 7 were laid out in front of me. I didn't have to worry about them. So there they are. That's pretty much all I have. I feel we're coming up on the end of the hour, so I'm gonna just close with the idea. If I could give you guys just 1 minute of how great I feel because of this program, as a result of this program, I would love to just go and give you like a transfusion, but I can't. You have to earn it. That's what makes it so special. And I can't do it for you. I'm going to do 49%, but you have to do 51%. I can't do it all. You have to do it yourself. That's what makes this so powerful. So Kevin, I'm going to pull the plug on that. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you all.